Greetings, Toffees. Welcome back to another episode of the Blue Frontier following Fulham 1, Everton 3. The Blues come back to win an away game after going 1-0 down for the first time in over 2.5 years, believe it or not. It's Mykolenko and Michael Keane battling back to give us the lead, and Beto with the goal for a cherry on top. You've got myself, James, and Ryan today. Unfortunately, no Sean, who is neglecting his pod duties because he has real-life obligations, which we'll only give him a minimal amount of crap for. Before we get into the match, just a reminder, if you enjoy the show, please support us by leaving us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. Follow us on socials. Join our Discord. All the links will be in the description. And with that, really excited to talk about this one. Let's kick it off with the summary quote. Over to you, Ryan.
From Mitch at Up the Toffees 1-1 or 11, depending on how you look at it. These go to 11. Altogether uncharacteristic Everton performance, but a great match. Pardon me, a great match. Sorry, it's like Wham.
Thank you.
The name of the band is not Wham, it's Wham.
Wham.
Yep. Resilience after conceding early, grit to get back in it, chances taken in the second half, and no capitulation. Even a VAR rejection. I got it right that time. None of this is what we're accustomed to seeing. NSNO. More of this, please. And I think Mitch is right. It was a little bit atypical from what we've kind of seen. Dare I say we're turning the corner as a club? Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but it did have a little bit of a feel. Maybe, dare I say, we're
Changing the story.
changing the story.
I thought you were going to leave that one just
I know,
such a
I know,
low-hanging fruit there. My God.
No,
Yeah,
no.
agree with Mitch.
But it was, yeah, look, I do agree. That's why I think it's an interesting quote. It's a different way to kind of look at it. Some of the things that you would say Everton that for in the past weren't really there. And it was a nice response. You know, we got maybe a little lucky at the end of the first half to even it up. First half was very one-sided, and the second half was very different. And we'll kind of get into some of the quantifications and the ebbs and flows of the match. Score predictions, I think we got only one.
Only one today. We've got I'm Blue, who predicted the correct scoreline. I'm also going to kind of begrudgingly give the Beto Bugle an honorable mention for his match prediction, in which he said, I have zero faith in Keane, 3-1, Beto helps us feel better. Well, the faith in Keane, I felt the same way, but hey, you were punished for it, and Beto did indeed help us feel even better about a lead we had already taken.
I mean, Jackson didn't technically specify one way or the other, but then we can't count that because it's like what DL did last time when he put the number in and then claimed it was the other way around. But that's, you know, I expect something unethical from someone like that from California. So
100%. I think if you read it as written, the 3-1 indicates Fulham, but he got if you reverse it, worth the honorable mention, and he got the Beto goal score prediction at least.
It still doesn't count.
It does not count. It does not count for the official tally. We'll have to get Sean back on the pod to run up the tally from the last couple episodes he's missed. Maybe that'll be his homework before he's allowed back on the pod. Getting into lineups for the day. This is where I think a lot of people were pretty discouraged seeing the lineup, and I think reasonably so. Firstly, coming from Paddy Boylan before the match, Jake O'Brien revealed to be injured. No specifics on that. Hopefully nothing too severe, but he, of course, drops, and in comes Michael Keane, much to everyone's chagrin. Patterson also dropped for Ashley Young, which I think added some fuel to the fire and frustration, though I honestly was okay with that change. We still see Decore back in as well down the middle. Ilman Njai on the bench. So really 3 changes for Moyes, which I think had a lot of people kind of scratching their heads as to the reason. And then also Dwight McNeil on top of it all dropped in favor of Jack Harrison. Everywhere else pretty much unchanged, but that's some pretty significant personnel changes for Everton, and I think a significant drop in quality.
Yeah, there's not much choice he has to make there at center back, right? So I don't know what we can really say about that. Sure. Keane has to come in. I get it. I think the Young choice is interesting. I would probably continue with Patterson. I think we said this last pod, but I can't argue with David Moyes. He wants to win, and fundamentally, it's not a halfway house, man. You know, you don't get to just get thrown in there, and I don't think Patterson's performance has merited his choice, so it is what it is. Njai is a little bit curious, but maybe there's a little bit of management there in terms of his fitness. He's not been amazing since he's come back. It's been inconsistent. He's not been terrible, I don't think. I mean, some of it's a byproduct of the whole match, but I think the more interesting one is the choice of Decore. You know, everyone's been joking about how he's going to be automatic. He's going to be in the lineup no matter what. But I think a lot of this is a continuation of the narrative from what Decore said on Ben Foster's podcast, which I think has been cherry-picked a little bit as a quote, but it's all out there on the internets this week, James.
Yeah, and sparked a lot of dialogue. I think especially compounded with the fact that he was dropped last week for a quote-unquote personal issue, which, could be something totally benign, but you just don't know. So we have this summary of the quotes from Decore on the Ben Foster podcast from Danny_EFC6, and the extent of it is essentially Everton fans would want him to stay, but want him to lower his wages. Why are you talking about my money? I deserve the money that I'm making now. I won't readjust my salary to stay. I don't think I should, or it's deserved, justifying it by the fact he plays every single season, scoring important goals. And I think this is a case, and where I come out on it is he's totally within his right to want to make as much money as possible in the later stages of his career, and Everton are totally within their right to say, thanks for everything you've done, but we ain't paying you that. I think it's okay to agree to disagree and go your separate ways.
Well, he's not on the pod, but let's hear from Sean Kahn about what he thinks about it. And I quote, "You're almost telling on yourself if you have an issue with Abdoulaye Decore asking for, at a minimum, the same wage he's paid or raise. For what he's done for the club, as well as the record with and without him, speaks for itself. Should the club do it is another question." And that's similar to kind of your feedback, James. I think what I have a problem with is that, I don't know if the club should be giving a massive wage to him to play. But what I don't like is this narrative that people are crafting to saying, well, he only has 4 goal contributions as a 10. He's not good enough. I just think that's kind of missing the point. Like, he's not a 10. He's never played as a 10 his whole career, not consistently until he came to Everton. And he's doing so very much out of necessity. Now, I'm not saying that because we should appreciate the fact that he's giving up of himself for the club. I don't mean it that way. I mean it that he's clearly versatile and it's there for a reason. He didn't, lose his spot as a center mid. Quite the opposite, I would say. Under Frank, maybe he did, but Frank's not really a barometer, in my opinion, for fantastic management sometimes. I like Frank. I hope he does well, but I think fundamentally we have played better with him in that role because that's the state of play. That doesn't mean we should continue with him in that regard, but that's not the right way to look at it. He's fundamentally a box-to-box midfielder playing in that role. And I also don't like this stupid narrative about he can't make a pass or some of this stuff is so dumb. And I think part of the issue is that people tend to favor the aesthetics style over substance, and he looks kind of clumsy and awkward at times, but he's not half as bad a passer as you would think these people would say, and objectively the evidence supports that as well. But it's just missing the point, right? But should we continue? If we're going to pick him on a free, I wouldn't pay him $120K a week, but he's on a free. It doesn't mean he can't have value and sub in and support, but maybe not at that wage, right, James?
Right, exactly. I just think it's a fact that he can't be one of the top paid players in the squad, I don't think, given his age and despite his importance. There's no questioning what he brings to the midfield collective as a whole. He may not do all the pretty things in attack, but his work rate is really without question and has provided us a lot of stability in midfield. You've seen when he's dropped, we just get run through in midfield.
Right. Now, I think what people don't realize is some of the progression that he used to add to the game in the Premier League. There was a point in which he was one of the better box-to-box players in this league, but he's probably not anymore, and that's okay, And he has a right to ask for the wage, and we have a right to say he's past his prime. For me, I probably wouldn't do it because you do see a decline. For sure. He is definitely not the player he was a couple years ago. Now, he can show up in the box every now and then and score a goal. By the way, you want a hilarious comparison, which this will set people off, but go look at his numbers last year compared to Scott McTominay's numbers last year. You laugh, but they're similar in terms of function. Decore is different a little bit in some ways in terms of showing up in the box and finishing off and scoring important goals. McTominay showing that he can do that very well at Napoli, and he wins his battle because he's a big guy. But some of that matters, So the ability, it's not just the energy. There's some intelligence there and some intellect. I wouldn't say he was fantastic today, but I knew people were going to be raged about it. So, James, what about the Fulham side that we were playing against today? It's hard to ignore. Well, there was one big absence, I think, today that's near and dear to our heart as North Americans, and one present guy that's having a heck of a season.
Yeah, I think the name you're alluding to is, of course, Academy graduate Anthony Robinson, Everton Academy graduate, that is, and maybe one of the bigger what ifs in terms of the last several years of Everton if they had held on to him. And the timing, we of course know, just didn't work out with Baines, with Dean, kind of blocking his pathway to the first team. But he's turned into a very, very good Premier League left back. And fortunately, I think for Everton, in a lot of ways, he was out today. His complement on the left side, which is what has driven, I think, most of the good things that have happened to Fulham this season, is their left side. And that's, of course, also former Evertonian Alex Iwobi. He was very dangerous today, and he always has been. And we know that almost all of their attacking effectiveness is driven down that left-hand side. It's Sessegnon deputizing for Anthony Robinson there. And Sessegnon's okay, but not nearly the effectiveness that you would get with Jedi.
Yeah, Sessegnon's all right. And he's actually, I think, been a little bit of a good surprise performer for them, a little bit. He's played some attacking roles rather than necessarily a wide back. But yeah, Iwobi just kind of sits in the half space, and they run a lot of play through him. They did that a lot in the first half. And Smith Rowe is very direct and kind of runs around and is active as well. So he gives them an alternative for Iwobi to find people running in behind and serve the ball to them as well. You see a lot of crosses from Iwobi and a lot of through balls on that left side, which is really where he's very good. And he can help control a game very well. I think the opportunity against these guys today was in the midfield. I mean, they're missing some of their defensive midfielders. Lukic, Harrison Reed's out. I mean, those are guys that are more defensive oriented, not pure DMs necessarily. And so that was a fairly attacking, aggressive center midfield combo that they had today. And you saw it when it was going well. It was tough for us to deal with. I think they won the battle of midfield pretty dramatically in the first half. But when we could take a little initiative and run at them, you could tell you could get behind them. You could expose them a little bit. I think it took a while, too, for us to grow in the first half and Decore to kind of adjust and prevent that ball into Berger because he was running with the ball very effectively. And while he's not the most astute on defense, he can run with the ball and pass it. I think you look at their bench, too. It's kind of odd. We also had bench options as well. They have Traore and Willian on the bench, which, I mean, those guys are kind of flawed or aging players, I guess, is a way to look at it. But we had two dangerous guys in Njai and McNeil, too. So you kind of had this feeling in your head, James, as the game went on, and it did play out this way, that some of those subs might make a factor. But it was very obvious that for whatever reason, we were really trying to attack it down the right side and they were attacking down the left. I don't know if that was really us as a response to them dominating down the left because, let's be honest, they controlled the game, but the numbers are very obvious they were trying to play through Iwobi most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. 47% of their attack came down the left side, 29 down the right. Everton, 56% down the right, just 24 down the left. But I think you saw Charlie, who was at least nominally playing off the left, kind of tucking inside a little bit more to try to support that and really trying to get the ball. Jack Harrison got the ball in a lot of good positions on the right wing and just couldn't make a lot happen.
And we looked at the key matchups. I mean, this is the one we talked about. I mean, Sessegnon and Iwobi, both 85 and 77 touches each. So Sessegnon had the ball a lot. And they did get behind. And, we can talk about kind of their first goal. But yeah, that was most of it. I mean, we kept them kind of out of the box for the most part in terms of their shot attempts later, but the first half was very much, young, struggling a little bit. Harrison had to drop back and defend a lot, but with Michael Keane on that side, I mean, you knew it was going to be a vulnerability. And for the most part, Ghana was over on that side intentionally trying to deal with things, and he's not always on the right side, although the goal was a little bit different. I think the other matchup was a very interesting one. I think Fulham's center-back pairing, as we said in the preview, is a very good and interesting combination, but Beto's a handful for everyone, right, James, when he's playing well.
Yeah, and Bassi and Anderson, not the tallest guys necessarily, but they're both pretty big and strong and rugged. So I was wondering how that sort of physical matchup would play out, and we saw it very, very early in the match. Beto, I think in the 7th minute was the first instance of this. Clear foul on Beto trying to hold the ball up. It doesn't get called, and it's like, okay, going to be one of those days. It feels like Beto can't get a call to save his life. He's getting manhandled the entire match. But definitely a predictive no call there that I think led to more of the same throughout, especially the first half.
Yeah, and it allowed Fulham to get on the ball. I mean, the outlet wasn't quite there. I think there's a lot of critiques on Beto's holding up ability. I think a little bit of it's misguided. I think Beto's trying to fight for space forward. So it's hard to referee him too. So a lot of times he would hold the ball up, but he's getting fouled or tackled or grabbed. I mean, he could drop in between the lines sometimes in transition and do it pretty cleanly off the ground. But otherwise, he's trying to win space. So it's a little different than what Dominic Calvert-Lewin does, who will drop back more, and thus he's not obstructed when he wins the ball. It's just different, and I think people are a little bit confused, again, substance over style. But this allowed Fulham to really grow into the match. I mean, Iwobi was getting into the danger area quite a bit. He had a pretty good chance, I think, in about the 9th minute. James, not his best attempt at goal, and he scored a lot of goals this year and has shot well, interestingly enough. People would find that surprising. He's got like 9 goals on an XG of something that's hovering around 5, which is a little surprising. His crossing's been accurate too. And fundamentally, Fulham were really, really making it tough for us, and they finally take the lead here in the 17th.
It's Raul Jimenez kind of headed in from right around the 6-yard box. It's Tete finding Emile Smith-Rowe, who's making kind of really an intelligent run at the edge of the box and loses his man, and then James Garner's kind of beat for pace a little bit or just kind of caught off guard. So ESR has a clean cross into the box. He's very open, and he places it well. And Jimenez also times his run really well. I don't really think there's much you can do to stop that. At least as far as Mikolenko's concerned, he kind of just gets leapt over. And it's hard when you're kind of stationary waiting for that cross to get much on your vertical. So credit to Jimenez. Again, it's really well timed if you watch the full sequence and build up, and it's a good finish, but frustrating if, albeit probably deserved for Fulham at that point.
Yeah, it's a great cross and a great finish. Now, Mikolenko has a little more time to see him. Maybe he could have kind of reacted and really thrown himself into him, gave him kind of the early bump or something, but it would have been asking quite a bit to do that. I think Garner's faced some criticism for maybe not being on the player as tight as he could be when he makes the run and picking him up. We were a little bit out of sorts because he was kind of on the wrong side at that point. So, okay, it happens. But yeah, I think it was deserved as well, James. Sleazy, lovely quote here.
Yeah, the quote just a few minutes later, because Fulham continued to push and we didn't look like we were responding very well, at least immediately following the goal. Sleazy, CEO, Danes and Dragons from the Discord. Moyes' face says, "I keep lowering my expectations and they under-deliver anyway." And that would, of course, only be temporary, but Fulham did continue the pressure. Harry Wilson was dangerous today. In the 21st minute, he had a pass coming from Iwobi, and it's a shot that's kind of curling across goal, kind of going out. Pickford ends up not having to move for it because it's just wide, but threatening nevertheless. Then just a minute later, it's the first break for Everton, and we saw some effective breaks today. Charlie Alcaraz in the thick of a lot of them. In this case, he finds Jack. This is a good run and a really good pass. Charlie bursting forward into space, laying it off well for Jack. Jack does so well to get the ball out from kind of under his feet and get the shot off, but the shot itself just not quite good. And Ryan, you characterized it so well in the match day thread.
That's right. Was this when I called him a warning track power for Jack Harrison?
Yes.
The quad A player for our non-baseball oriented American listeners. The label of a quad A player, the highest level of minor league baseball, is Triple A, and the majors, no one calls it quad A. So there's certain players that seem they can do really well at the highest level of the minors and just cannot do well in the majors. That's a big gap. Yeah, that's a little bit the way it was. I mean, XG of 0.14, bravo for creating it, because he steps inside really well to create the space to do it. We know how good his first touch is, and then the expected post-shot XG is 0.06, right at him. That's a little bit Jack to you. Although a lot of our stuff was sending long balls to him. So he was getting some crosses away. I mean, that was kind of the only real danger other than... I mean, Charlie running with the ball is kind of what started this.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a couple other ones here. Like, there was that crazy play where Ghana sent a pretty tough pass to Mikolenko, and you just see Miko's feet are not that quick and light sometimes for a fullback, and it's on his right foot. He makes a bad touch. It's not a good play. It's not a great pass either. On the break, thankfully, this is a one where Iwobi just misses. I mean, it was fairly one-sided to this point. JB going down after the ankle injury. This is not the only injury where someone went down and we were concerned about it, but this was, oh boy, this could be trouble because we're already playing with Michael Keane back. We assumed that James Gardner would drop back to center back, but later on we find out, I mean, Seamus Coleman could have done it. Who knew? And there's another big chance here too, where, Wilson kind of goes by Ghana into the center, creates a shot for himself. This is a fantastic save, by the way.
Yeah, this is a impressive low save from Pickford. This ball skidding across the ground. It was definitely going in, and he gets all the way to the post to push it wide. Had kind of a weird spin on it. Wouldn't be the last great save from Pickford, but it's getting a little more back and forth at this point towards the end of the half. And just before, or just as we get into stoppage time, Alcaraz does well to block a longer pass, get in, and get a shot on goal from kind of a tough angle and wins a corner, which would, and then we eventually get a throw in sort of in the aftermath of that. Not the greatest delivery on the corner, but the long throw into the box, Decore getting onto it, laying it off for Mikolenko, and you knew immediately that he was going to score from there, obviously.
Oh, of course, no problem. I mean, Decore, to his credit, does pretty well here to shield the ball and create a little time and space for himself and shows some in-the-box composure, which is something I think we lacked throughout most of the first half. And yeah, it's a crazy deflection. And, you know, the gods are shining upon us at this point. No one thought we deserved to be in at half even. Decore gets his 5th goal contribution of the year, which, like I said before, who cares? Yeah, just looking at the numbers, James, I mean, I think we're all going into the first half thinking, how on earth are we tied up? And I mean, the XG numbers are pretty one-sided. Almost everything we had. I mean, they generated nothing from set plays, but they almost didn't have to. I mean, and looking at that post-shot XG, I mean, they could have maybe been up more. 1 goal for them is probably fair, but I don't think we deserved a whole lot after that first half, did we?
No, it didn't feel that way. It felt very much like a gift from above to get that equalizer, the nature of it, the deflection right before half to bring you level and give you a platform to push for something different in the second half, which we, of course, would do. But yeah, 0.59 XG for Fulham in the first half to 0.29 for Everton. Their post-shot XG, 1.09. So good shots from maybe slightly more difficult positions. 10 shots to R5. They had 4 on target to R3 and 58% possession. So most of the momentum for the vast majority of the first half going all Fulham's way, but that goal did represent a pretty seismic shift in the style of play, especially as Everton come out in the second half. Almost immediately, a minute after the second half starts, we start to see Everton breaking effectively. Charlie's running onto this one. He gets a shot blocked, but Everton getting a little bit more pressure, getting some corners, bit more in the final third to start the second period of play.
Yeah, it felt like it was a little back and forth, James. The game seemed to be opening up a bit, I think is probably the best way to say. I mean, we were growing into the game, but I wouldn't say we were taking control or anything. You know, there was a corner to the near post to Beto. There was kind of the 1-2 with the Iwobi and Sessegnon on the backside with the Iwobi's cut back. Decent shot saved by Pick for a corner. How about the save by Pickford in the 52nd minute, James?
I mean, the shot from Wilson itself is pretty ridiculous on the half volley to kind of loop it up, and it's dipping down. Again, talking about injuries, we had the scare with Branthwaite, and then Pickford makes this save, pushing it over the bar, and then goes down, clutching his shoulder. We've just taken Jordan Pickford's fitness for granted for so long because he really doesn't get hurt, and it didn't look good, and he was, rolling it and trying to loosen it up after, but was able to continue. But scary moment. Although, if there's a time for him to get injured, it's probably right around this point in the season, to be fair.
Yeah, and it was a strange play, too. I mean, I think Wilson does really well to get the ball on frame the way he does. And, Pick does a great job kind of staying light on his feet and reaching back and making a good parry. But, yeah, he laid out for this one and definitely landed pretty awkwardly. I think many of us were also rejoicing at the yellow finally administered in the 55th. I mean, really?
Yeah, Beto finally gets a foul called on him, taken out by Berger on the break. This is Jack again involved, playing a good through ball for Beto to run on to. And you had in the notes here, Beto is handful. I think that sums it up quite brilliantly, I must say.
Well, and like I said, he's hard to referee. But that being said, the inconsistency was stunning at times. Now, I'm not going to be that critical of the referee today because of what we'll talk about later, and that is Darren England, I believe. And that I do want to talk about at the very end of the match. It didn't really matter, but I mean, it was all over the place. I mean, I couldn't tell what was a foul, what wasn't. And Beto, I felt like, was getting fouled quite a few times. And there were other times they wouldn't call one. And just, it was a little bit strange. But I'll say this, though. You kind of knew there was going to be a moment in this match where Moyes was going to look at his bench, look at who's on the pitch and say, I think I've got a couple guys in here, and Dwight McNeil and Ilman Ndiaye, that are better than a couple of the guys you had on the pitch. Now, my fear was eventually when he moved for Ndiaye, he would pull out Charlie. And I didn't want to see that. I just kind of wanted to see them work together and Charlie to play down the middle. I think he's maybe he's good on the left too, but I think he's better down the middle relative than any of those other attacking guys. And I still want to see Dwight on the right to see if he can really do it, because I think if he can figure that out, he gives us some different options next year, and I think it's valuable. And sure enough, what happened? He made the sub that I think everyone wanted, right, James?
Yeah. At the 61st minute, Moyes had seen enough and wanted to tweak things going forward a little bit. Brings on McNeil and Njai for Decore and Jack, which I think is, as you say, the right sub in that moment. Gives you fresh legs first and foremost, because I think both those guys had run themselves pretty ragged at that point, especially Jack having to do all that work getting up and down on defending the right side from Iwobi.
Yeah, and Jack was, some of the end product wasn't quite there. I mean, he's just not quite as dynamic as you would want him to be. There were some moments, we weren't getting a whole lot elsewhere on the pitch, so you can't totally blame him for that. But I think the game was opened up enough now, and I have a feeling kind of Moyes had always had this sub in the back of his head. If he had to script out the match, I think if we're even at this point, we're going to go for it if it looked like it was a chance, and that's what happened. I like what Michael Greenall EFC said, though, on this one, because it's hard to watch these matches and not know that we're going to make some upgrades in the summer, James. So, you want to still keep your interest, but I just kept thinking about this the whole match.
Yeah, Mick Greenall. I look forward to next season when our outballs aren't Jack Harrison and Vitaly Mikolenko. I think we're in the sort of dead rubber part of the season. All eyes are towards the summer. And even at this point in the match, it's 1-1. There's still something to play for. You still are thinking, like, can we just get through these last few matches and get to some new acquisitions and more exciting attacking players coming in the door? So I think that's a fair criticism of Harrison and Mikolenko. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks and months, but the sub happens, and it does look like he does move Charlie to the middle and puts Njai on the left. We love the moment in the 69th when Charlie just bundles over Sessegnon to prevent him from getting to a ball going out of bounds and wins a corner. Love that Argentinian ferocity there.
It was like the slightly unnecessary finishing off the play type thing, and there was some chatting afterwards, but no, he bodies him. He has a right to that ball, and he puts him into the adverts, but, hey, rub some dirt on it, get back up. And yeah, Sessegnon was not happy about it, but whatever it is, what it is. But off the ensuing corner, and it's kind of like, this is why you need to try and figure out a way you can get Dwight McNeil on the pitch sometimes, or we need to find people that are better on set pieces, because this corner is just, it's about as good a delivery as you can have. It was hit with pace. It had spin on it. And it looked like we had two waves of center backs going through there. And who does it fall to? The goal scorer himself, not Will Keane. It's the other one.
It's Michael Keane, prolific Everton goal scorer at the back post, doing just really well to get on the end of this and hit it in. And it felt like the ensuing review following the corner that we won in the goal, they were doing everything they possibly could to figure out a way to rule this one out.
There are a lot of strange things about that. First of all, he heads it in and he kind of gets caught into the net and stuff. So he can't really get around the net to celebrate. Everyone's in the corner celebrating. He's like, I scored. What? And so finally he gets loose and then puts his arm up. It's like, this is ridiculous.
I saw someone put out the audio of Keane behind the goal, and he just puts his arms up in the kind of 80s vertical arm style celebration. You don't really see it anymore. And you see it like, yeah,
you're like, why aren't you celebrating with me? Well, we thought you were trapped, It's like, caught in the net, But I think what was really interesting about this VAR review is it's a very strange one to me, because when the goal goes in, it looks like maybe Charlie, from some angles, was interfering with Bernard Leno, but the truth, and was in an offside position to do it. The thing is, he wasn't obstructing his vision at all. Upon replay, when you saw it, it looks like Charlie initially takes up a place in front of him off the corner, which is fine. I think the thing is, Leno reached over and pulled him towards him. I think that's why there's no way you can call this, even if he is in an offside position. That's why Charlie stumbled a little bit. But I think this is the right call. They kept the goal. I don't think there was much really interference at all anyway. When you saw it from a different angle, there was space. And fundamentally, it's an awesome service and great finish. So not much you should have been able to do about it. So I was happy they kept the goal. I think that's the right call. And, we're all excited now. We're thinking, wow, how are we winning this match? And sure enough, a couple minutes later, we get another one.
Yeah, it felt a little bit surreal to go up and then almost just a couple plays later, it's Beto this time, and it's Charlie again involved in driving the ball forward into space. The first touch he takes here, where he realizes he has that space to kind of move into and takes the big touch to like 10, 12 yards in front of him to run onto it. Great awareness, great execution. And it's honestly not the best pass to Beto because it's just behind the defender, but gets kind of a little touch, and Beto's right on it. And again, it's Beto doing enough. It's a well enough placed shot, but Leno probably should save it. Nevertheless, it's into the back of the net. Everton up 3-1 in the space of 3-4 minutes, and Evertonians all of a sudden are like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
How are we winning by 2 goals?
Well, the thing is, Beto's a little off balance when he does this, but I think he saw the opportunity to shoot early because Leno was not ready, and it wasn't the greatest angle necessarily. Yeah, it's perfectly placed. A little right to left curler on the outside, and kudos to him. It was a good shot. Andy Watt Dog in the Discord reminding us, first player to score more than 7 in a season in the last 3 years for Everton. That's in the league. Is that 8?
I think that's 8. Yeah,
that's
8.
Amazing, man. Yeah, because last year Decore had 7 from open play. That's what's kind of really important about it too. And that's the thing. Like, you can bag on Beto for various reasons, but fundamentally he's still scoring goals. So objectively, it's hard to really say it's not working. Up to the goal, though, I think in the second half is pretty interesting, James. It was just a weird game. Like, it was all just passing, It was kind of modern football, for better or for worse. I can't imagine this is true, but there was only 1 dribble attempt, only 4 successful tackles, and no interceptions from half up through the 2 goals, like 75th minute.
Very non-confrontational in every aspect. Offensive players not taking guys on, defensive players not disrupting.
But a lot of space, though, out there. That was the thing. It was like it's people could kind of have the ball and move. And a little bit this is how Fulham plays at times. I mean, 90% pass success rate for them, but kind of who cares? They ended up getting a lot of shots in the second half, but not too many that were very dangerous. Eventually, they sub Wilson off for this, which is kind of amazing if you think of the volume of shots he was taking. We'll get to the numbers later. Willian comes on, increasing the average age on the team by a considerable amount when he came on. I think this actually took them out of shape a little bit. You know what I mean? I think Iwobi was dominating on the left. I don't know why you would go away from that. If anything, I would drop him deeper to get on the ball more. They eventually made subs, too, because they really weren't generating the chances they want in the 82nd minute. For Everton killer Josh King. And then, Godo comes on, and that guy had a bunch of chances too. So it was weird. Like, we were very content, I think, at this point to play the game state, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly right. I mean, you're up 2 goals. You can be a little bit more comfortable. And Fulham threatened a little bit, but generally kept them at arm's length for the most part. In the 84th minute, I think this was an interesting sub at the time from Moyes, bringing on Irabunum for Charlie. Charlie had run his race to that point. He definitely looked pretty tired, and a great game he had. Getting a lot of plaudits, Alcaraz is, after the performance today.
I think he was very good. Fundamentally, I think he was the danger guy in the first half for us as well when he did get a chance to get on the ball. And credit to Moyes. When Tim comes in, obviously I get nervous because we just give up goals like nothing else, but it was a like-for-like switch.
Discord won't let you forget it either.
And that's fine. But fundamentally, this is how I would use Tim the Enchanter. I would bring him in that 10 role when we have the lead and be disruptive. And he was. I mean, his athleticism is no question about it, right, James? I mean, if he's given the freedom to run around and disrupt things, you saw it for sure. He's got size, he's got pace, he's athletic. When he gets on the ball, when he doesn't decide to dribble every time immediately and has some awareness, he can make a pass too. I mean, he's got some tools there. There's no question. I thought he was very effective the last 10, 15 minutes here disrupting play. I mean, he had a tackle, an interception, and you saw it. I will say this, though, fundamentally. So I was sent this message right after the game just randomly by someone, and one day I'll share who this is and people will get some laughs. But if they don't take Alcaraz, it's mad. 12.5 million pounds is a steal. I mean, can they pass this up at this point? There's no way, right?
Seems like a completely obvious no-brainer. And there was some dialogue about this week as well. People saying Moyes seems kind of unconvinced or non-committal about Alcaraz. I think behind the scenes, it has to be almost universally agreed that this is an obvious move at this price for this player, who he is currently not even taking into account his potential upside.
Yeah, the age, the wages probably aren't massive, even if he was at Flamenco, and they do pay pretty well. My guess is, I mean, there's probably going to be a decision soon. Angus Kinnear looks like he's starting now.
Yes,
Apparently,
he was at the game today.
He was at the game. He has officially left Leeds. They do need to hire a new head of recruitment or someone else to represent the football side on the committee now that Dan Purdy has left. Good luck to Dan. Obviously, he's one of the best in the business, I think. He will be hired soon. I don't think that will be a problem, and we may miss him. But I'm sure whoever comes on there is going to hopefully be thinking the same thing, and fundamentally, Angus should be comfortable making that. There could be a financial fair play implication, James. I mean, truly, we know we have to be a little bit tight on how we do. We could talk about the table later because added revenue would be very helpful in terms of place. Interesting double sub here at the end. Kudos to Michael Keane, too, because it looked like he was really struggling at this point and starving away from injury. A couple other guys were banged up, but the sub was to bring in Seamus and Dominic Calvert-Lewin for Beto and Idrissa Ganagai, two guys that worked their tail off. Like this sub, Seamus showing some leadership, Dom racing out there trying to get on the end of balls, and I think we saw the match out pretty well. I mean, Tim had a great recovery play here later in extra time, but then in the 97th minute, I do want to talk about this. There's a penalty shout here. It's a cross. It hits Mikalenko's arm clearly. There's some debate whether he was trying to move his arm away from the ball or not. It's a tough call. But what was significant is that the VAR called for the review on the sideline, and we all then assume, what is Darren England going to do? Like every single time, almost every single time they go to the monitor, they change the call, right, James? Not what happened this time.
Yeah, and I can only imagine this is a credit to Darren England for insisting he sticks by his original call, and ultimately it's the right call, I think, as the rule's written. Yes, it is, you'll rarely see a cleaner hit of the actual hand than this, but that's not what defines a handball. As unintuitive as that is, it is moving away. When I initially saw it, I thought, how do they not call that? But then the replays and everything, you can see the motion of his hand is away from the ball, and he is just trying to kind of position his body, the core of his body, in a way to block the cross. So I think it's the right call, and I was shocked. We have not seen this.
I know.
A ref push back and managed to persuade the VAR that he gets to make the final decision.
And this is where the Premier League, I think, is very different. I mean, they really still, deliberate is the first line, even in the IFAB rules. But I feel like in England is the one place where it's less objective. If there looks like it's if it's not intentional, which, I mean, what's an intentional handball? But if it's not deliberate, they normally don't call it a handball. So I think this is consistent in how they interpret the rules. Everywhere outside of England, it's a handball immediately, though, almost immediately.
Right. You saw it in the Champions League.
Yeah,
Arsenal match.
And that's how it is. And the players adjust to that as well. You see a lot more arms behind their back, things like that. I personally like that better because I think it's hard to officiate situations and guess kind of whether it was deliberate or not. But I get it. I concede either way. Like that's football, right? I mean, it's a fair conversation. What I thought was curious, and I had several other people out there ping me on Twitter about, like, England looked like he was in heavy dialogue with the VAR when this was happening. I can't help but think, and fundamentally the flaw in VAR in the Premier League is how the VAR guys seem to almost make calls independent of head ref. And look, this sport is hard to referee, right? I mean, it's very subjective. But to me, as long as it's a single person's subjectivity being applied throughout a match, I'm fine. And the VAR, in essence, is an assistant. If he didn't see something really well, he can go to it. He can get additional information to make a call. I just felt like England stood up for himself and, I mean, seemed very animated about it. And I think he got the right call the way it's interpreted in the Premier League. So bravo to him. And this should happen more often, James. This is the point of it, right?
I'm just nodding my head throughout that entire dialogue because I couldn't agree more. This is what you should expect. It shouldn't be a foregone conclusion that if the referee on field gets a second chance to look at a play, that it immediately is going to be overturned. I think he's going over, getting more information on the play, and I think the more you watch it, the more it becomes clear that by the letter of the law, it's not a handball. So you come away, you say no penalty, and this is the way VAR should work. It takes a little bit longer than maybe you'd like it to,
sure,
but otherwise, the end result is the desired one. The right call's made.
And think about it, in a big moment here, there's probably no way he could have seen to the left arm, right? Now
Exactly.
maybe the line judge can, maybe his AR can see it, but fundamentally, when you slow it down, it does look like his arm's moving away from the ball at the very last second. So bravo to him, which probably means that he'll be reassigned by the PGMOL and doing League Two by the end of tomorrow afternoon. Anyway, we've said many times in the pod that them trying to sabotage VAR seems obvious. So good job for Darren England to step up and actually have some cojones and stick with his call.
Not the hero we expected, but the hero we needed from the referee department.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was particularly good throughout the match.
He wasn't,
either.
but he stands in the last couple minutes of stoppage time in what would have ultimately been a totally meaningless penalty that wouldn't have decided the result. He stands on principle, stands on business, and gets the result we were all hoping for.
Well, look, fundamentally, if a referee's inconsistent or doesn't do well, I don't really care as long as I feel like they didn't affect the result of the match, and I felt like he didn't. So, look, this is very much a tale of two halves and very much a tale of game state, I think, really. I mean, after our second goal in the second half, after it went 3-1, I mean, look at the numbers, James, right? I mean, 4-1 in shots, 75% possession of Fulham. They only really had one corner, 5-1 in interceptions. Like, we were picking the ball off. They weren't. They were on the front foot. But, I mean, look at the XG on this. It's not high. And, I mean, we had the better chances, I think, in the second half.
I think that's undeniable. And we had more goals, too, not to even to mention. 0.76 XG for Everton to 0.38 for Fulham. They did have the 8 shots to our 6, but we had 4 on target to their 2. So better chances. We had a couple big chances that we missed as well. They had more of the ball, but given we're up 2 goals, like, you're comfortable. That's just good game state management. Everton are not a possession team, though I think, in a future state, you'd like to see Everton with a 2-goal lead dictating the game, dominating the ball, but that's not the reality of the current situation. So be it. Saw the game out without much of a threat. Take the 3 points away, and we move on.
Yeah, you got to play different ways at times, I think, to be successful, especially in this league. But fundamentally, look, I mean, Everton in the second half had 5 shots with double-digit XG numbers. Fulham had none. I mean, it's really that simple. I mean, the highest one they had was 0.08. They had only 2 shots on target either. It's not like they were pinging us all over the plate. I will say this. Harry Wilson didn't even come close to playing the whole game, and he had 8 shots and 3 on target. 8 shots?
I said it earlier. He was all over the place in the final third, everywhere, and some of those shots were very well taken from pretty significant distances.
Yeah.
Dangerous player.
No Encizos, though, thank God.
Yeah, no Encizos. We'll take our take what we can get there.
Yeah, and I like what Wombat Combat says on this one too, James. I mean, I think this is true. I think David Moyes did pretty well in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike at Wombat_Combat. Friend of the show, regular contributor. Funny how first half of a meaningless game had people fuming, but Moyes brings a level of patience and determination and completely outmanaged Silva in the second half. Maybe he and the players aren't as, quote, fragile as some disingenuously claim. Don't have to always be front foot. And yeah, hindsight looks good. I think people obviously get very mad at Everton. The context needs no further explanation. The first half was understandably very bad and didn't look like we were anywhere near getting anything out of it, but Moyes managed it very well, changed the game. We get the fluke goal right before half, and we carry that momentum into the second, create a couple good chances. In the span of 5 minutes, the game's done and dusted. I mean, it's a great away result for Everton, and Fulham have shown weakness in preserving leads. I pulled this number. They've dropped 28 points from winning positions this season in the Premier League, which is tied with Southampton for most, which is kind of wild, and the most they've ever had in the Premier League. And Everton on the other side of that, Mykolenko and Beto scoring 2 goals from outside the box. The first time Everton have done that in an away game since 2018, where Lucas Dean scored both those goals.
I was going to guess that was the match for sure. Yeah, very interesting. Look, there were a lot of good performances to go around. James, I'll let you kind of go first, then I'll finish up.
No prizes for guessing who Ryan picked for his good performance.
What are you talking about?
I actually, there were a lot of good performances. I got to give it to Michael Keane, though, because he gets the winning goal. He had 6 clearances, 5 interceptions, and he was 4 for 7 on long balls. I feel like we saw a lot of what Michael Keane has been known to do well. And I actually feel like Michael Keane will come in for a game here or there and be very good. It's when he gets an extended run in the team, that really exposes his flaws. Like, if he has to play next week against Southampton, I'm going to be just as scared because he's just prone to those individual errors, which I think he does get an unnecessary amount of crap for, but I thought he was very good today.
I don't know if it's unnecessary.
Yeah,
no, there were times where you could tell Jimenez's movement in the box was troublesome for him when they crossed it from over to the right. But fundamentally, he was playing with the ball in front of him a lot on the other side. Yeah, of course, Alex Iwobi was the player of the match for me. No, I'm just kidding. I did write that out of humor. Now, Charlie's probably the other one I think people pointed to, right? I mean, 2 key passes. He had the assist, 4 for 4 with long balls. He attacked the goal, too. You know, he had 2 shots, 1 on target, was not a bad attempt. Only 31 touches, but, you know, he took care of the ball. I mean, pass percentage, really almost missed pass, nothing, 88.9%. And I think fundamentally he was consistently our most dangerous player. Even dropped back deep, had 2 clearances. So, you know, it wasn't like he was absent on the defensive end. I think the challenge for him is if he's going to play down the middle, times where we're behind the ball, can he do that effectively? Can he kind of play a little bit more defensively? We know he can run with the ball and attack and transition. So if he could start to get a little bit more comfortable with the tactics, maybe we do have our future number 10, James. But either way, he's shown that he can be a useful player. And like I said, that 12.5 million pounds is such a layup on this one.
Yeah, we had this comment from at mpotter44 who said, don't need stats, even though we just gave you some aside, to see Alcaraz as a cut above what we've had recently. That's on the non-highlight stuff. And also goes on to say, Keane must be top 5 in club history for headed goals from corners. He might be up there. Everton has a pretty storied history, though. I'd be pretty shocked if he's in the conversation. Maybe in Premier League history.
Yeah, that would be sad. I also saw a lot of people giving Beto stick for being poor, and I feel like just people, I think they misinterpret his game a little bit, you know? He's combative, so he's going to get in battles. There's going to be bad touches when he's thrown to the ground. Trying to hold the ball up while engaged with the player is not so easy. I think we saw a lot of flick-offs and little things here or there. I felt like he got his head on a lot of stuff today. I don't know. I thought he played fairly well. I don't know what people expect from this guy sometimes, James. The aerial numbers look really good, too, and I felt like it was true.
The aerial numbers, I did not expect them to be this good. 8 for 11. I know he was getting on a lot of them.
He's getting his head on everything, though. It's not his fault if he's isolated. I think that's part of the issue.
He's isolated offensively and getting manhandled by the defense constantly. So I also think he did obviously very well on the goal. The holdup wasn't consistently great, but you go back to the being manhandled thing. He doesn't have a lot of options, doesn't have a lot of time and space, and he showed up in some very good moments in 7 touches in the box.
I think also it's a misnomer. A lot of these flick-ons or little things which you would say indicative of hold-up play, it's not always his responsibility if the other player is not shown or is not there. I think sometimes he can do a little better with the ball at his feet and releasing the ball quickly and finding people. There were a couple cutback kind of passes and square balls he put into the box today where had the player made a little different run, one to Decore in particular, where Decore went kind of he thought he was going to go to the near post and he didn't, which not really his fault, you know. You can only do so much. But of course, I'm not remotely surprised that at Jackson_Bugle, he had something to say about Beto as usual.
Yeah, he is the president, vice president, and treasurer of the Beto fan club at this point, I would say. The comment is, no one better disgrace Beto's name again. A lot of talk this week between DCL's new contract and Beto staying, and I think today decided that Beto deserves to stay. Been very good this season when he gets his chance to start. Only really played half a season, and look at his tally. Brings him to 8 goals on the year. We, of course, saw the rumor link that Leeds have an interest in Beto. Ryan, how do you feel about the point from Jackson that Beto deserves to stay? And maybe second to that, do Everton view that the same way?
Yeah, I don't know. We could do worse, that's for sure. I think he was signed with the intent on being, the dice roll at center forward was a tough one. You need to have a good player up there, knowing that Dominic Calvert-Lewin was in or out, knowing that the payment terms were very favorable with the Pazos. That was the deal for Beto. So maybe you paid a little bit too much for him at £25 million, but nothing was up front. So this one's hard. You got a feeling the center forward market's not going to be great. And so that's part of the issue. My concern is that if you're going to offer Dominic Calvert-Lewin a contract, you have to sign someone else. I just don't trust him to be healthy. He's been in and out of the lineup now for 4 seasons. So I know some people may contest that, but when you're dealing with abductor and hamstring issues, you never know what you're going to get there. I think that's a fair risk, and center forwards get banged up. So that's part of it. If you had an offer, maybe you take it, but you just got to be able to replace him with someone that's better. And there's so many holes in this team. I think we need to take a longer term viewpoint, but but I think you could do worse in having him stay, having another year go through in terms of amortization and then selling him. But it just depends on offers. He'll have interest. I mean, Leeds interest, that doesn't surprise me at all. They can't go into next year with Pirro as their center forward. They may think they can, but they can't. He's not good enough for that. They have some good attacking players, so they need someone to get on the end of the ball. Yeah, so that's my viewpoint on it. If you're going to sign Dom to that contract, you cannot trust him to be in there every match. So you've got to sign someone that's legit. And if you're Beto, if Dominic Calvert-Lewin signs a longer-term deal, do you trust David Moyes or really anyone at the club to give you a fair shot at starting over that guy? I probably wouldn't at this point. It seems like every time Dom's ready to go, he goes back into the lineup. And fundamentally, you can argue aesthetics all you want, but this guy is scoring. And he frankly, in our good spell here, has been absolutely as critical as anyone.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think that's what I come back to. Similar in terms of, in some ways, to the Decore conversation of the players' wants and needs against what the club needs. And I think Beto, the rumors preseason were that he was promised a shot at the starting job by Deitch. DCL, whenever fit, seems to play under both managers, Deitch and now Moyes. Moyes has made comments in the media praising Dom and praising Beto too. He especially praised Beto today, but I think maybe being, I don't know if it's condescending. That's probably not the right word.
It
but
sounded funny though.
A little dismissive maybe, or like
Yeah.
undervaluing, I think, what Beto has really contributed in this recent stretch of games. So I don't know what their personal relationship is like, and really I wouldn't blame Beto for looking at where he is in his career and wanting to go somewhere where he's more certain of getting regular game time.
Yeah, and I'll say this. The problem with Dom fundamentally is, and you saw it actually at this moment, is that he had a chance where the keeper came out, right? And it's a tough angle. I'm not saying he should have scored. You know, I don't mean that at all. But fundamentally, if Dom could finish the chances he gets on the end of, much like Beto can, frankly, he does. I mean, Beto finishes a lot of those. We'd all feel very different about him, but he's just not real good at whether it's elevating the ball or finding a way to get it just kind of past the keeper and find the net, because the rest of his game probably is better than Beto's. I mean, collectively. I mean, they play a little differently. But, you know, he's big, strong, fast, and can leap. And my other concern is, too, I mean, Dominic Calvert-Lewin seems like he couldn't stay healthy when he was bigger and stronger. And, you know, in this league, does he have the game where he can be a little more svelte, stay healthy, and athletic? I don't know. But Moyes at least has some adaptability and flexibility at the center forward position. And my only concern is center forwards are expensive. I think in this market, they might be really expensive. So if you're going to do a lot of movement there and acquire someone, like people keep talking about Liam Delap, which fine, he's an interesting young player and he definitely can score goals. But if Everton were to attract him without European football, I mean, we're in 13th place, right? I mean, why would he come to us unless we offered him just massive wages over another club? Because everyone's going to activate that £30 million release clause. So I don't, you know what I'm saying, James? Like, I don't, and as a result, I wouldn't want, like, there's no reason to pick a young player, even though it's a young player that's shown he can score goals in this league, if you're going to then pay him $150K a week or something ridiculous just to give him, that defeats the entire purpose of going after a young player. So right. I think we could do worse. It'd be this is a decision, though, you think that we need to make. It's probably worth doing an episode where we really run down the people here, because that's the stuff that Angus and team need to decide on now, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going, is we'll undoubtedly have a lot more dialogue about this whole squad composition thing, and we'll do probably several episodes discussing it. I just think when you look at the limit, I've said this on most episodes recently, like, I don't want the team to make their job harder in the summer of this rebuild job. So when you have people who are kind of pen on paper already guaranteed to be here next season, we've got enough empty slots to fill that why are you adding stuff to your to-do list unnecessarily? It just feels a little odd to me, but we'll see how that goes.
Well, okay. Is there a number, though, that someone offered for Beto that you let him go?
Of course, there always is. I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, at this point, let's see, he's been here 2 seasons.
Would Summer offer 25 for him? million euros? Would they?
I think you'd probably take that.
I think that's, they start getting into the 20s. I think maybe you got to consider it. And then maybe it's worth taking that and making the investment, because the PSR, well, it also depends on the Friedkin's willingness to pony up the cash, because if you could sell him for that, I can't remember what his book is at this point. It's probably like 13 or 12, right? It's about
roughly,
half.
Yeah.
Right. You can book a PSR profit on it, and then you can apply that to someone else. Then it's just up to the Friedkins if they want to front the cash for a big sum or not, which it sounds like they might.
Well, what I think we're all hoping they will. But yeah, And you also still need to get all of the pieces above the recruitment in place. So a lot to do at Everton. But
You're
we'll
saying
leave
all
that.
these transfer rumors don't make sense, James?
Yeah, I mean, God, I don't know if people. I think people have come to expect us to be diligent in vetting the rumors that we talk about, which is why we've talked about effectively zero of them, besides the Beto one we just talked about with Leeds, because they're just nonsensical at this point. It's crazy. But we'll see. Once the pieces are in place, we move forward. But I think to put a wrap on this match and this post-match pod, had a little bit of dialogue in our instant match reactions channel on the Discord. Some differing opinions, I think. Starting with Second City St. Louisan. Sometimes bad games are rewarded with wins. Today was one of those days. Was today a bad game? I don't know that. I think it's fair to say the first half was very bad until the goal, and then the second half much better.
Well, if you look at then kind of the other quotes, right? Keldon. Didn't give up, didn't fold, would watch the second half again, but the first half should be binned. And then look at what Sludvig said here. Great win. Sometimes you get the results when not playing at your best, and today was one of those days. Stay above Spurs and United. What do you think? Which one of those three? They're all a little bit different, right?
Yeah, well, I think the first one, I know a lot of people probably want to turn the game off at it right before halftime. I mean, around the 45th minute even, you want to turn it off. But there's a resilience to this team that we definitely didn't see last week, right? I mean, we saw them fold and capitulate last week to Ipswich to an extent. Obviously, the wonder goal and whatnot.
No, that's fair.
But it's a totally different response this week. And you see Everton very inconsistent. This is still a bad squad, but countering the fragility argument, as we had the comment earlier, I think that was fair and a good response from the team today away from home. So I think Sludvig's in the end didn't play the best, and you still get the result. Everton have had a handful of those types of games this season, and that's a positive sign.
Yeah, I just hate the fragility thing. It's so childish. Like, what really irritates me is when people kind of, it's like they're uttering the exact same narrative thing. It almost sounds like the media in America, where it's like the same talking point on each side, that all the different outlets are saying the same thing. You're like, you literally almost said that verbatim. It's, whether it's Decore can't pass a ball, which is just like kids speak. Like, seriously, man, grow up. Things like that. It's just kind of, Moyes is fragile. I don't see that at all. No, nothing about this is fragile. Look, I think, though, today, I guess you could make the counter argument today, though, James, that we benefited by Bernd Leno not playing like he did a couple years ago in the opener, where he just, I'm convinced he sent Neil Maupay's career for Everton into a spiral.
Yeah, I think he did too.
And Iwobi's. Remember how Iwobi was good that match too?
Yeah, I remember that, such a frustrating game, and I think now every time we play Fulham, you're just expecting that level of performance from Leno. It's just been burned into our memory, but today was not that, definitively, for Leno. And he's had not the best season overall, honestly, but I looked at some of the numbers. Leno's post-shot XG plus-minus, which SofaScore dubs as quote-unquote goals allowed, was at minus 1.77 today. So basically almost 2 goals that he should have prevented, which would be like his second or third worst performance this season in terms of shot stopping. So you catch him on a bad day, you take advantage of it, and you get 3 points at Craven Cottage. I'm not going to complain too much about it. And you give Everton away fans something to cheer about. We had Jack Kelly, who's an independent reporter who covers Fulham, said, Everton's fans are the best I've seen and heard at Craven Cottage all season. There were some great clips coming out. Spirit of the Blues, you could hear it loud and clear on the broadcast. 3 away goals to celebrate. Pretty good trip down to London for the traveling Toffees.
Yeah, you could hear him. It was just unbelievable, right? So I think it's fair to look ahead to the schedule going forward, James. I think the first one is last home match at Goodison, I guess, for the first team. Maybe not for the girls or for the U21s, but that's another story and probably another entire episode. And at Newcastle. But I think what's really nice is looking where we're at in the table, James. Can we hold these guys all off and finish in 13th? Really?
It's close. There's a lot of interesting kind of shuffling of places to take place, both around the Champions League places and then this kind of mid-table. I think Bournemouth are definitely out of sight at 10th. Fulham might catch them, but, Palace were 4 points above us with a game in hand. I think it'll be difficult to catch them. But below us, Wolves, all of a sudden, with 12 wins on the year, just 1 point back. United and Spurs, we have a game in hand on them, but we're 3 points clear of United, and 4 points clear of Spurs. That would be amazing, even though one of them will emerge as Europa League winners. And that's going to be a very interesting fixture. But it looks good. Southampton drew City today. Good result for them, 0-0. The occasion of the final match at Goodison, I think, just completely overshadows the weight of the fixture itself. But that's definitely winnable. And then you've got to go up to Newcastle and on the last day. And I think 13th is it's ours to lose almost at this point. Get a win at Southampton and you're well positioned, and 13th would be an unbelievable achievement within the context of this season.
I think there are also a couple players at Sunderland, or part of Sunderland. Wow, I was really going to say that, huh? Well, they're that too, because we're linked to their whole midfield for some strange reason.
Classic.
Yeah, I mean, Southampton getting the draw today was interesting because it ensures that they don't have the worst point total in Premier League history, right? So
what
bravo.
an honor.
Bravo.
Not the worst ever.
You know, it's so sad, too. That club used to be just the best run, and I think they got a little aggressive with their recruitment, maybe, and some bad luck. But, you know, you get a chance to see a couple young players that, you know, Tyler Dibbling is a big money guy if anyone wanted to go get them. I like Wellington, the left wing back there, too. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Sulemana is still there and playing a lot better, I think. And I guess they had him starting up top today. I don't know if that's exactly how they played. But I do think he was a favorite of the old kind of recruitment team. So I don't know if they're going to change their tune on that one. Because if you remember, Kudus and Sulemana coming out of Nordsjælland kind of at the same time. I know Purdy and Brands were really high on them and couldn't get them over the line. Ajax moved for Kudus and Suleiman went elsewhere as well. So there's some interesting players to kind of watch, but I mean, maybe they'll feel better about how they played. But, you know, Ramsdale versus Pickford, you know, the guy who should be starting for England.
So
I mean,
third time he's relegated.
I don't know, man. But look, maybe City didn't have much to play for today, but fundamentally, we should be able to do the business on this one. But yeah, 13th would make a big difference from a revenue standpoint, James. No question.
Absolutely. And I'll add also with the win today, we can no longer break the record for most ties in a season. So that
I know.
will remain
Standards.
out of grasp, unfortunately.
You know, I think the other thing is, too, if we could pull out a win next week, it gets us to 45 points. Fundamentally, United can't catch us then. Well, no, they have two more games at hand, basically. Wolves and Palace play against each other, too, so that kind of factors things in interestingly. But, yep, you never know. Look, fingers crossed. I do think it would matter. I do think financial fair play is going to be a little tight for the end of this fiscal year. The reset's going to be great July 1st, though. I mean, we have a lot of room to play with with that regard, assuming we make it this year. Although, as far as I'm concerned, a point here, a point there at this point, the heck with it.
Amen to that. We'll put a bow on this one. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of The Blue Frontier. One last ask. If you enjoyed the show, do us a solid. Help support us. Leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. Absolutely join our Discord. Follow us on socials. You can find it all below in the description of the episode. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Till the final match at Goodison against Southampton. Up the Toffees.